Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of Columbus Local Podcast. I am Len D'Amico, and today we welcome Paul Weiss. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, Len. Doing good. Thanks.
Thanks for joining today. We know you, I think, primarily as a local musician, and you have a regular gig currently at, can you tell us a little bit about that?
At Mozart's Piano Cafe up on High Street in Clintonville, right south of Morse Road. So right, just like a couple of blocks south of that big arrow. You know, it looks like it's for a drive-in movie theater.
Yeah, the
or
old
something.
Jerry's sign.
That's what that. Yeah, I'm actually just kind of 10 years, just living here for 10 years. So some of this stuff is new to me. So yeah, I think of it as like the arrow for TJ's, which isn't there anymore, and it's like it probably wasn't even for TJ's. But anyway, just a couple of blocks south of that is Mozart's Piano Cafe, and I play there. They're only open, I think, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I play Friday for the lunch and afternoon tea crowd, which is basically their crowd. They're not open for dinner. It's just basically from like 10 to 4. So for lunch and afternoon tea is their thing. So I play one day there, and then I do their weddings, so I'm very busy with that. I do a lot. I'm doing a wedding this Sunday. Especially this season, I do practically one a week, which is great for me because that's I love doing that stuff. It's a dream come true. I, as a kid, used to see people play in movies and stuff like da 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 da. Be like, oh, that would be kind of cool, and now I do it.
Yeah, so is that how you got involved in music? You got inspired by these movies as a younger guy?
No, I got inspired. I was lucky enough to have a piano where I grew up in my house, which is, so that's like this huge gift that whatever 1 out of 10 people have. My mom got a piano from when her dad, who was an immigrant from Kiev, came here at 6 years old, in like 1900. The only thing, and no money, the only thing he ever bought was this piano. So my mom made sure she got it from her family. And she didn't really push me into it, but once I said I wanted to do it, she was incredible because she was there for those first couple of years where you're learning, and it's just not fun. Yeah, I mean, it can be. It's a little fun, but it's a lot of work. And I was like 11 or 12, so my friends are outside playing ball. The last thing I wanted to do was do that, but I did want to play. And, I'm so lucky because my mom like literally sat there on the bench with me and was like, no, you're going to do this for a half hour a day. And then after a while, you get to a point where it's fun, and then and that happened within 2 years, and then you don't need anyone to sit there with you anymore.
Oh, wow. You want to do self-motivation to learn songs.
Yeah.
Do you remember those early songs?
I learned just like, everybody else. I forget what, Himmler or something. No, what is it? Himmels, maybe? There's like a little red book that has songs like My Bonnie Was Over the Ocean, My Bonnie Lies Over the Sea. And you learn that way. I sort of, once I learned that stuff in very super easy classical, like, simplified classical pieces like Haydn Symphony, like but then probably when I was about 13 or 14, I got a piano teacher who would take out rock books, whatever I wanted, from the library and just borrow them for a couple of weeks and give them to me. So I would learn it was mostly more Elton John, honestly, than anything. He would get me these, this one Elton John book that, just to show how old I am, it was called The Complete Elton John, and it had the album Elton John, the album Tumbleweed Connection, and then the album Friends that came out before. So it was like all way before anything. But I was sort of obsessed with that and playing that kind of stuff. And then it just, moved on from there. I was thinking about that today. When I was a teenager, an album would come out, especially an Elton John album or a Billy Joel album or a Steely Dan album. And sooner or later, a piano book would come out about that, which they don't do anymore. For years they haven't done. In fact, I had a celebrity story on that. I met that guy Jeff Tweedy from Wilco at the Newport Folk Festival. He was playing. I was just going there, but we were staying in the same hotel. So I met him, and I was like, does Wilco have any piano books? Like, when are you going to do that? And it's like, I was so out of it, piano books didn't exist. So he goes, you mean tabs? And I didn't even know what tabs were at that time.
I didn't know piano had tabs.
They don't. It's you just go. It's the same tabs. Tabs from Ultimate Guitar. You know.
Yeah.
So Jeff, Jeff Tweedy turned me on to the concept of tabs. So that's great. But so anyway, I remember when Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy came out. About 6 months later, the piano book came out, and then I would just sit there, playing that and being obsessed. And I have one more incredible story about my mom with that. I remember years and years later, like after I was out of college and just there on vacation, I was sad about something. And she was like, why don't you go out and get a piano book? And I didn't know, or no, she said, get a music book. And I was like, I'm not sure why. And I went out and bought this book about it. And I was like, all right, I'll get the Beethoven biography. I didn't even know what she meant, but she meant, why don't you buy one of those books that, have the sheet music out of it and stuff. So it's like she knew me better than me. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then the greatest thing about piano is, for every 10 guitar players, there's one piano player. So everybody needs a piano player. So once I was functioning on piano, and the timing was kind of right. It was 1976 maybe, and I was 14. That was probably when I first started playing with people, and by 16 I had a band.
Oh, that's really cool. And where was that geographically?
Geographically,
here in the States.
Yeah, I'm not from Columbus. I'm from the New York area, and geographically, it's in this hilariously interesting town called Massapequa, New York. It's actually a village, the village of Massapequa, in the town of Oyster Bay, and I'll clarify why that has any meaning at all later on. But so Massapequa is where Jerry Seinfeld is from, and he actually was in the Cub Scouts with my brother.
Oh, wow.
So it's a funky town for, like, that was his sort of claim to fame. Now that's about 6 years older than me, so that would make, like, he's probably 66 or 67 now or something. But in my high school when I got there, but older than me, were the entire Stray Cats. But like Brian Setzer was really the only one of the current, at first, he was like this bizarre star as a teenager, and he just
rose out of the town, out of the village, right?
Yes, and everybody knew it. I saw when I was about 10 or something, and he must have been 14 maybe, a thing at the high school, a battle of the bands that he didn't win, because the band that did win had actually the son of my piano teacher, who was a violin player, and they played like Leonard Skinner, and they had a violin. So they did Charlie Daniels, and it sounded perfect. He had this 3-piece, and I think he played Highway Star by Deep Purple. Like, it was like so not Brian Setzer, but the entire place just freaked out and was like, they never saw anything like that. But that band didn't win, but I remember thinking in my head, man, if this kid can't make it, nobody can make it. My parents are right, because I was just like kind of overwhelmed with that. Music's fine as a hobby, but don't go into it, because there are no people that can make money doing music. And I was like, well, if you're right about this guy, I guess you're right. But they weren't right about him, so. So who knows? So he made it, and he's really interesting because he's also one of the few people that did that parental nightmare of dropping out of school, in the suburbs. And he dropped out
to go pursue his
to play with a band called the Bloodless Pharaohs at CBGB. And back then, where we were, about an hour from Manhattan, you would take the Long Island Railroad, and my parents would be very upset if I even, like, they would let me go to concerts at Madison Square Garden because you didn't have to step foot outside of Madison Square Garden. So this kid at 16 is playing CBGB, like right when the Ramones were starting. Wow. And you can see videos of the Bloodless Pharaohs. They had a punk hit called Boys Are Having Babies. So yeah, that's a interesting thing.
Did you hit those shows?
Oh my God, no. I was like, when that was happening, I was 13. And I had, when I saw Brian Setzer, I was a freshman my first day, and he was there for one day and then he left. And he had his hair like piled high and stuff, like sort of like this Stray Cats thing. And he was wearing mascara. And I looked at him and I was like, man, how does this guy not get the crap beaten out of him night and day? Because that's all I thought about as a little 13-year-old. And I was like, I had long hair, like trying to do whatever I could to sort of look tough. And so he sort of blew me away. And then it was really interesting. He had his brother, who was a great drummer, named Gary Setzer, and a bass player who was my friend's older brother. The guy's name was Michael Beecher. And for some reason, Brian got two other people from Massapequa, a guy named Leon Drucker, who now goes by Lee Rocker, and who was just a year older than me. And I remember seeing him in bands playing like the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead with a big afro and stuff. And he's interesting too because his parents were in the New York Philharmonic. So he's actually he's just a great musician and really, focuses it on comes in it from a musical standpoint. And the other guy is also from Massapequa High School, Jimmy McDonough, or Slim Jim Phantom. So I would see those guys, but they were all older than me. And like I was as a freshman, and the closest thing to my high school experience was that movie Dazed and Confused. So I was like the freshman, just like trying not to get beaten up wherever I went. So I knew these guys, but I wouldn't talk to them. I did, when I became like in 11th grade, I started playing with those kind of people, and I was a little bit more accepted. But when I first saw those guys, I was literally
just in awe.
I was, yes, and a very wimpy little kid.
Well, not anymore.
Yes, no. Now I'm a big thing.
Your music's huge. You're having, that's really interesting coming from that area and so many other folks that are musically gifted.
It was crazy. Liberty DeVito, again, the drummer for Billy Joel, lived around the block from me. He was different in that he just moved there. The most hilarious thing, this is going to blow your mind, at the park, right, like about, I don't know, not even a quarter of a mile, like literally one little block, then one little block up was a house right on the corner, and I can't believe they let them rent this house, but Twisted Sister rented that house. You could hear cool. Twisted Sister at night from 1976 to 1980 or whatever, always rehearsing there.
Sharpening the sword.
Yeah, it was the funniest thing, Twisted Sister. And then they became big too. So yeah, Massapequa was this crazy thing, and then the Oyster Bay thing is funny because now with the Liquor Talkin', we're going to be doing a Billy Joel thing, and he's got this song called The Ballad of Billy the Kid, where at the end he talks about himself, and he goes, from a town known as Oyster Bay, Long Island, which is actually the town that Massapequa belongs to as a village. So there's my whole Long Island backstory.
You laid it all out, man.
Yeah, can you erase this?
No, we can't erase any of this because it's a live recording, man.
Oh no!
Like it's kind of a thing here. It's like I enjoy the conversation. I think the conversation's awesome, and I think when you start editing things.
Oh my God! Oh, okay.
I just don't. I don't think it's
good.
all
I'll try. Then I'll try to focus a little bit if that's all
you're good, man.
Humanly possible.
You're totally good. So, what brought you then to Columbus? Was it music or
no?
work?
As I said, to me, I didn't really see music as like a way to make a living. It just seemed too hard, which in New York kind of is true, much more so than Columbus. So I sort of, I became a creative person in advertising and ended up being a creative director, and because of my position was able to do music on a lot of projects. So that was kind of as far, musically as I got until my biggest job I had, where I was a group creative director of a lot of people at a big New York agency at a time that, that they decided to enter agencies in a battle of the bands. And everybody knew, because that's all I ever talked about was music. So my agency didn't hire me. I was working there, but they allowed me to not do my job so I could just lead a band in this little gig at B.B. King's in New York. So it's this beautiful club with an actual, backstage, green room, whatever, and great soundman and all that. So, and it was a pharmaceutical advertising agency. So the band was called Pharmatopia. And from that band came The Liquor Talking. And that's when I made the CD. That was all the very end of 2007. So by May 2008, the sax player from that band and the guitar player and basically a guy I knew because the advertising agency did a lot of really voiceover work more than anything else with a big New York studio that happened to have a grand piano there. So every time I'd go there to record something, I'd play piano, and the guys that owned it were also the engineers, and they liked to get high. So we just had a great time. And after because my agency gave them so much money, they were like, by the way, you're playing these songs, we'll record them for you, do whatever. So I got this CD basically done for free because of that studio. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah, so it was just sort of, you might as well do it. So I made that CD. The other thing that's interesting was I did want to play out at that time. I hadn't played out since, the late 80s, and this was the kind of the early 2005, 2006. I was like, I would like to play out. But unlike Columbus, when I was in New York City, you really had to play original music. Otherwise, you couldn't get the gigs that people could get, at a place like the Bitter End, or Kenny's Castaways. Those kind of easy things, you did have to have original music. So that's really the impetus for making the CD. But I'm so happy I did, because to me, the songs are meaningful, and I would have never remembered them. It would be absolutely meaningless after this time, so I just would have forgotten.
So you have a reference point.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Well, and the CD obviously helped you get gig. What'd you guys play?
Back then, we played there. I remember the Bitter End was a big place. A place called Local 269, Kenny's Castaways, and then I moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, right across the river, and played places like Maxwell's once, but then there's a place called Northern Soul. Geez, I don't even know if it's there anymore, but the same sort of crowd went from one to the other, and I ended up playing there, doing even a cool thing after a while. I would play an hour, just piano and sing before an open mic. So there'd be a big crowd there at the time I finished. Perfect. Which is basically why I did it. So, people would sort of get to know me that way,
That's perfect.
Oh, so anyway, I moved out here because the advertising business that I was in, a job came up at a place. It was called Inventive when I was there. Now I believe it's called Cineos, and it was originally called Gerbig Snell Weisenheimer. And it's like the biggest healthcare agency in Columbus, maybe the Midwest, I don't know. So they, moved me out, and at that time, literally, we had a family, and schools in New York are a little tough, and the whole thing. It's a very expensive place to live. So I was really looking to sort of downsize the expense part. I wasn't at that point thinking I was going to be able to do what I did and give up advertising to play music. That was sort of a fantasy. But I did think I could worry a little less about money especially if, I got a sort of New York salary to come out here, which is sort of what I did. So
that's really awesome.
Yeah. So that was it. So that brought me out here, and I was here. And then, it's the thing about advertising that it's not a surprise to me, so it was no big deal. But once you get in your 50s. It's as a creative person, it's a little hard to hold on to your job. So I wasn't surprised when 3 years later I got let go. And rather than keep, in that business, because Mozart's was like on my way home in my neighborhood, I saw it all the time. And I went there and, played for the guy a little bit. I was like, why don't I try and do this? And I had to do this crazy sort of audition for him with like different piano players. Because he knows everybody. So like he would invite Dave Powers to like come and sit at a table behind me, and Arnett Howard to like sit behind me
you're
and be like,
for all these,
right. And
these
meanwhile, they're
names.
like, yeah, he's fine. Just don't ask me to do this. But it felt great. I got to accompany Arnett once. That was another great thing about Mozart, because he would do a Thursday night, sort of like in the same room that we did the Liquor Talking, like a sort of bigger show. And one night I got to accompany him. That was great. He's a great guy. A lot of great musicians around here.
And he's retired, right?
I guess he moved I know that he moved kind of for health reasons, I think. But I forget how. But God, yeah, he was such an inspiration.
But that venue now is a steady thing for you, obviously.
Again,
but you're
steady.
Augmenting that with some other projects, right?
Oh, sure. Well, the Liquor Talking, the band with the great Mega Beth, and
she loves the project.
Oh my God, that's
Loves
great.
it.
And I look forward to, whenever we can get to it, doing some of the other things that, like, Beth and I have a real common love for Carole King, and I've always
She covers
always played those
really
songs
well.
ever since.
She'll be in heaven,
I would play
trust
those
me.
with my sister. So so I'm looking
Some good
forward to
stuff
getting
coming
to
with
do
that.
that. Yeah, but the Liquor Talking, luckily, is like my dream come true. Like, I've played as the piano player who like sings a couple of songs, or whatever, or doesn't sing and just plays piano or plays organ for bands basically my whole life, and always saying, even with greater frequency the older I got. So by the time I got to Columbus, I would tell anybody that I would play with, by the way, I'm a Steely Dan tribute band waiting to happen. And nobody gave a crap.
I got to tell you, that debut show a couple weeks back, right, on May 19th.
Oh,
in
thank you so
Columbus
much.
was
Yeah, it was
absolutely fabulous. That room was standing room only in that venue.
Yeah, it was great. I know Mozart's looked great. The owner was very happy about that. Yeah.
The band was great. Yeah, great sound mixed by the great Patterson
Tyler.
sound.
Yes,
Tyler
yes,
Patterson.
yes. Yep. It was, and the truth is, like, everything, I owe it all to Matt. Like, I was literally everybody. Charles, your singer from Days Gone By, probably remembers me because we did My Old School, and I would always say
does,
that. By the way, we could play as much Steely Dan as you want. And everybody's like, yeah, whatever. All right, now let's play Black Magic. Do you know Black Magic Woman? That's like the bane of my existence. Like, I'm always wanting to play Elton John, Billy Joel, and Steely Dan. And they're like, great. Do you know the organ part to Black Magic Woman? Okay.
It's some Sam and Dave.
Oh, right. Which I love too. But
all the blues, soul stuff. That's what that horn band's all about.
But anyway, Matt was the first guy that really that was like, yeah, let's do it. So and we hooked up in the funniest way. I reached out to him because I knew he gave bass lessons, and my son wants to take bass lessons, and he's still taking bass lessons. So from Matt. So my son Jack. So when I asked Matt to do that, he was like, great. By the way, how would you like to play in a Fleetwood Mac cover band, a tribute band? And I said, great. And we did a gig. And like I said to everyone, I said to Matt, by the way, if you want to do this for Steely Dan or Elton John or Billy Joel. And next thing I knew, he's like, yeah, let's do it. He put the whole band together. He's like, getting the videos done. It's like, it's amazing. And he's the
really
greatest
good
bass
at that.
player on earth.
He's not only a fabulous bass player, but he's a great person. Very positive person.
Yeah.
Very focused instructor and assembler of great projects. There's no question about it.
Yeah. I know
everybody loves Mr. Matt.
Yeah, and I know he's a great instructor. I watch him teach Jack every time. It's fun. And Jack really loves it and gets a lot out of it. But yeah, just what he knows, because I'm not really, this is all kind of new to me, actually thinking of music as a business seriously. And Matt, like, does it. Like, he's the real thing. And he is just so good at music. Like, he is, without a doubt, the band leader.
He's a master bassman as well. I mean, his professionalism is
his bass playing is
so many.
Yeah, his bass playing is exactly that.
Insane.
Yes, beyond so many. But the funniest thing, I still have it on my phone, and I'm sure Beth does too. We were working on Peg, and he sent us on Messenger all 3 harmony parts. Him doing it.
He really does pay attention to the details.
Yeah, he's funny.
That's awesome. And so we are going to see more.
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
Of the liquor talking in different. So you want to maybe explain
sure
the next step? I know you and Matt are kind of.
Yeah, me and Matt are. Yeah, we're almost like the Becker and Fagin of the liquor talking.
Yeah,
and we have with the same exact lineup from basically the same lineup from Mozart's. We're gonna start the Billy Joel and Elton John thing, and probably even some shows where we combine them rather than just one, call it like Elton Joel. This way we can get a sax player and a guitar player to be busy the whole night. So because Billy Joel seems to use a lot of sax and Elton always has guitar but not so much sax. So we're gonna do those are upcoming quick. In the meantime, Matt and me and Tommy Edwards, who's an incredible drummer, the drummer for the Liquor Talking, we also do a trio that's basically like, the sort of basis for however big it needs to get, but depending on how big the gig is. For example, we're playing this place, Planks in Grove City, which is very small, so we're going to do that as a trio. If we have a gig in November at El Dorado's up in Clintonville, my neighborhood, that's a little bigger, so we may be able to get one more person. And the bigger the gig, the more people we can get. So it allows us to be able to play out a lot. Which I think is
flexible and keep that same brand of the Liquor Talking, correct?
Yep. And even probably in going in other directions farther down the future, like I also have done Tom Waits, and basically the same kind of thing, like a Tom Waits show with a couple of different people. Craig Bataki, who's the drummer that I play with in the Rolling Rock show, which I'll talk about in a second, and also Tyler Reed, who's another big Tom Waits player. We actually played at the Rambling House a few months ago, and it went great, and Matt was kind of interested in doing that and playing upright bass, which would be incredible for Tom Waits. So, we're going to do that too. So there'll even be a Tom Waits thing with, again, me and Matt at the center, but the Rolling Rock show drummer and this guy Tyler, who's great as well. So it's sort of all over the place. And then again, Steely Dan, their backup singers are called the Danettes. That's where I got this idea of calling Beth and Melanie Roy the Liquorettes. Which is and I think Steely Dan got it from Ray Charles. I think he called them the Rayettes. But I want to get at some point to that place where we're doing Carole King and like all those great like Randy Newman and Tom Waits songs that people like, Linda Ronstadt and Bette Midler and Bonnie Raitt covered. So there's a lot of music to do under this little Liquor Talking umbrella.
There is, and the diversity of the vocalist as well, I think is something that is an opportunity to grow into and offer a lot.
Yeah, we did that a little bit, having having Melroy sing "Do It Again" and Beth sing "Dirty Work," which was great. But at some point, I don't know why we couldn't have a whole show of that.
Yeah, as things progress, it sounds like great plans and a great brand that you've carried from New York to Columbus, Ohio, and
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
So in addition to the liquor talking, I know you've got other
Yes,
other
I
projects.
forgot. Yeah, in fact, yeah, I'm saying Craig Pataki's the drummer. I was just talking about we play in a band called the Rolling Rock Show, which is what we are to Steely Dan, kind of. The Rolling Rock Show is to the Rolling Stones right now. So, and it was great. They have a lot of sort of the people in the band, Tim Lipovsky, Bruce Roberts, Bill Wyatt, Bill Lutz. So it's a big band with a lot of fans. So I don't have to bring anybody, and the place is packed. We played this enormous place called Villa Milano, and the place was packed. It like blew my mind. We made a fortune.
That's great. Well, that's great to
just
hear,
because
man.
these guys have, I don't know whether they're fans or friends. I don't care, but it's great. So
They're
that,
enjoying
so
the
that's,
music.
yeah, so that's
And
another
supporting their friends, right? Supporting their friends.
Yeah,
loving the
yeah,
music.
yeah. And some of these guys I know really do have names like this. Like Bruce Roberts has been around Columbus, unlike me. He's been in the scene forever. So he's, he has stories of, these bands that were famous that I didn't know because I didn't grow up with them, like the Dantes. I don't know if you heard of them.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they opened for Jimi Hendrix. I know that because I have my keyboard sometimes fixed at Able Audio, and if you go there, they have the poster from where it was, and Jimi Hendrix opened it with the Dantes. So yeah, I hear all those stories. Oh, and Billy Zen, I don't know if you know him, but he sort of seems to know everybody. So
it's interesting you bring him up. We saw him yesterday at Gatsby's playing with Donna
McGavero.
Yes, and they played some. Her name's escaping
Kim
me.
Crawford.
Kim Crawford
Yeah.
tunes. They played about half a
great.
dozen of those songs, and she's really doing that material justice.
That's great. She was
and
so
those
sweet.
those songs, and to see Billy playing,
He's
very
great to watch him
light-
play.
A very light instrument, is one of those.
That bass is kind of a light one. Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, but he is definitely someone that runs. I don't know if he's still running open mic now or not, but he used to, and then he's got a lot of music. He's
Oh
been
my
around
God,
for a
yeah,
long
and he
time.
sort of knows everybody. And he just released something that blew my mind. It was like almost rockabilly. It was like a real regular, guitar, bass, drums, but killer, great. Black album cover. I can't remember what it's called. It's a great plug I'm giving him. I can't
we'll have to
remember
check
the
those
name.
out, man.
But yeah, I'm sure it's on his Facebook page. But it was terrific. So anyway, though, those are great. Between that and doing, weddings, I get to do a lot of music, and I get to do a range. That's the fun. That's the crazy thing is I still, I get to, which I never thought I would be paid to be a classical piano player. Like to me, that was something that only happened to people that were doing recitals when they were like 8 years old, and I definitely wasn't. So, it's funny, if you just keep up with it long enough, you can, kind of do it. But that was another great, Mozart's was a huge help for that. Back when it was a restaurant, Mozart's changed dramatically post-pandemic. Before the pandemic, it was open 5-6 days a week, and I played piano about 4 or 5 days a week for like 4 hours a day. So you get really good. Yeah, you get to do so. It's slowed down since then. That work now I just do the weddings and stuff. But because of that, I'm kind of proficient enough to do the other
Whatever
stuff.
you want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good to hear somebody is out there, doing what they want to do, what they're passionate about doing. As often as you're able to do so. So
yeah, it's cool.
It's going to speak for it. Do you get tapped by folks to sit in or
sure
guest
all the
appear
time,
and all that?
Yeah. I used to play. I do it now when I can play up at Eldorado's. They have an open mic on Monday, and that's I would always play with those guys. And yeah, I used to play with Soul Seder all the time. Get to play with different people now and then. It was great seeing Sean at the at our gig, Sean Prudog at the Mozart's gig. So, and we were talking about, let's try to get together and do some playing. So, I love playing. There's so many great musicians around here, and it's great playing with them.
There definitely are.
Yeah.
It's
Charles, too. I remember your singer. Charles
Valentino.
Valentino. I remember teaching him the songs at his house. He owned his little electric piano.
Oh, yeah.
Before the band played, I would like it because he didn't know my old school that well, I think. So I had to be so your part's going to be here. So that was great. Got to meet his kids and wife and stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, what a beautiful family too.
Oh yeah, and he is a killer front man doing incredible stuff. As is Patrick. Like Patrick is posting so many videos that I see him all the time, but I'm like, God, when did he get so good at this? You know,
Patrick.
Oh my God, because I haven't known him all these years. Like I knew him mostly from El Dorados.
Yeah, Hot Lucy picked him up, and that's the first time that I saw Patrick.
He's incredible with
Hot
that.
Lucy, and he's
how about
having
his
so much
other
fun.
band?
And
that band that he's got with that guy Mike Rock, who I've never met, but I see his stuff all the time. But that looked like a great band too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out there busy, and I'm hoping he'll come talk on this. He belongs. All those guys.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to see.
Oh, my God.
Come
yeah.
on.
Well, Sean
would
keep you busy.
Sean's like, hey, man, I'm down.
Yeah.
You know, I got to go to Florida for a week, and we'll talk. And then in the meantime, I'm booked through, I think, November of every week doing these episodes. And I'm trying not to make this work. But it's business.
Right.
I mean, people want to do it. And I'm just like, oh
sure.
man, if there's a demand for it, I'm going to keep rolling.
Oh yeah, and
I
he'd be
love
great.
I love meeting and talking to people like yourself because it's a life passion.
Yeah,
And you just ooze of coolness, you know. But when we see you on stage, all this history that you bring, nobody knows that unless they hear something like this, right?
Right.
Like, who you've associated with and where you come from, and obviously a lot of Elton John and Billy Joel and some of the greats, are kind of rattling around in your head all these years. And
I grew up in that, at that time. Like I was born in 1962, so like that Elton John album came out when I was 9 or 10, and then it was Tumbleweed, and it was like one after another, and then Billy Joel did it. So, and at that same time, I was learning piano with a piano in my house, so it was pretty insane. It was great. It was a great time to study music, but again, back then, that was my solo stuff. And then for years and years and years, and basically until I met Matt, I was like, the guy that would play piano in the Southern rock bands, whatever, which I liked. But I was always like, any chance we could play Elton John? Yeah, no, nobody wants to hear Elton John. So I got to tell you, man, Matt really made my dreams come true with that.
You and Matt, I think, are a match made in heaven because of the, you guys complement each other personality-wise, idea-wise, and musically.
Yeah.
It's a great foundation.
Yeah, he's a real pro, where I'm sort of like, let's play. So he sort of he reins me in a little bit, but then it's thrilled that I sort of have whatever, show after show of stuff that I basically just have in my head because I've been dreaming about it since I was a teenager. So yeah, it's kind of funny that way.
It's all good. All good.
Yeah.
So what are some of the, fond memories that you have? I mean, you've talked a lot about New York a little bit, but anything funny happen along the way that you'd like to share, or unusual? And
sure. Well, a couple of things. My famous person story was a New York thing, but I'll make that fast. And I do have a funny Columbus story that was right before the virus hit. But the quick one is because I knew Brian Setzer through another route about 10 years after I'd first seen him in high school. When I was about 23 or 24, I was playing in a band called Tabula Rasa, and the drummer was friends with a guy and I don't know how well he knew him, but a guy named Tommy Burns, who's been Billy Joel's music director and lead guitarist for decades now. He happened to be he produced this little demo that we did of like 6 songs. So I hung out with him for a while, and at that time, it was a kind of odd time for Brian Setzer. He had left the Stray Cats, but hadn't done the orchestra thing yet. So he put out an album called, I think, When the Knife Feels Like Justice, and it's great. It's like a Bruce Springsteen kind of music thing, except he's singing it. But, great guitar all over the place. And Tommy Burns was his other guitarist, so there were 2 like wailing guitar players. So we opened up for that band once, so I got to meet him. And
That's pretty cool.
yeah, well, I got to see, like, Brian Setzer was just like the nicest guy. It was like the most amazing thing. He was like, he just like had no pretense. But my Columbus story, I was thinking I saw, because I said, yeah, I'm going to be on your show when I saw your Facebook thing. And then Stacy said something about it, and she was there. So was Melroy at my bizarre rock story in Columbus. I was playing with a previous version of the Liquor Talking. Actually, for a while, Ann Gadd, or Imber Solis, who you're having on next week, was a singer. She was a singer for the Liquor Talking.
Okay.
In fact, she designed most of the current Liquor Talking website, which I'm going over to Matt's house now to try to figure out how to remove and get it, because it's like, so anyway, it's very her. But so she's great, and another great musician. I forget if she was there, but she had played the Moose, one of those Moose places, the one in Worthington, and so Cliff Marsh also played, but I don't know if it's all the same gig. But right before COVID hit, it had hit, but we didn't know about it. I played a gig where I got really I just was like feeling sick, but I didn't know from what. And Sean was there, and he said, yeah, why don't you drink a little tequila? And I never drink tequila. Or anything, really, pretty much. I don't mind smoking, but drinking is too much for me.
When Sean offers tequila, that's always trouble.
But it was like I was worried about my throat, so that's why I did it. Meanwhile, and it wasn't that I was drunk or anything, but by the end, somehow I had to throw up. So we're at the last song, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can make it through this. And we're playing, fortunately, right by an exit door. So we ended a song, and I'm like, all right, while they're all, it was one of those songs that had like a big ending to it. So while they're all doing it, I'm just running out and throwing up outside. And I did, and it worked perfectly. And then Melroy came back and was like, held my hair back. It's like, she was like really sweet. And so a lot of people were really nice, but I was like, oh my God, I practically threw up on stage. This is like the most punk rock thing I've ever done in my life. And then nobody knew anything about COVID, but then COVID came out. I was like, God, maybe I had COVID. Because I once had it just actually a couple of months ago, and it was symptomless. So I sort of feel
You're
like,
lucky.
Yeah, COVID immune, and I don't know if it was because of that. But that was a funny night, yeah, and both Melroy and
I was there,
Stacey
man. I saw it.
Yeah.
They helped you out, too.
Yep. And that's a funny feeling to sort of like have to choreograph that. Like, it's ending, I'm like, all right, I think I can time this just about right. It ends, I like get up, go like that, bow a little bit, and then duck out the back door. And then it's opaque, so nobody can see through it. But if you were listening, you just hear somebody retching on the other side.
Over there. Jeez. Well, a true professional.
That's what Stacy said. She talked
Weiss.
about it the next day, and she was like, nobody's more professional than this.
Fabulous keyboard player, producer, and choreographed illness dispositioner. Nice work.
Thank you.
Well, hey, Paul, I think we're about out of time with episode 8 of Columbus Local. We're fortunate to have you in Columbus.
I'm thrilled to be here.
A lot of history, a lot of talent, obviously.
Oh, thanks.
We're looking forward to a lot more the Liquor Talking and the various, avenues that you'll be exploring.
I'd love to do some stuff with you too.
I'm not opposed to that.
I love that. I love your band. I love the Days Gone By stuff I see. I love it.
That's cool. Yeah, we have a great time. We're all having, we've been together for I think 6 years. Doing a lot of suburban bars and venues, and
So ever since COVID lifted, it's like really kind of easy getting gigs. It's great. Yeah. So good. So we'll look that up too.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks. And so how do we stay in touch with you, Paul?
We are, so the Liquor Talking, I would say the easiest thing is Google the Liquor Talking Music or the Liquor Talking Band. I'm pretty sure Liquor Talking on Facebook should be very easy, and that's probably the easiest way to get stuff. Paul Weiss on Facebook will get you stuff. And same with Matt Sistone, Mattcistone. I say that because we're in the midst, literally, of taking the stuff that was Babylon Brothers on the internet and moving it with luck to what is now the Liquor Talking. This is kind of a long, funny story, but Anne, or Imber Solis, is the technical genius who set up all the Liquor Talking stuff. So that's a process. So I'm not exactly sure how, but I'm sure if you Google Liquor Talking music, you'll do fine.
We'll find it, and we'll put some links in the Spotify description.
Awesome.
Of this episode 8 of Columbus Local podcast is with Paul Weiss, and we thank you again for being here today.
Thank you so much,
and sharing your stories and your background, and we know more about you and what's coming, and we're looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.